Hey y'all, James here. And do you ever want to listen to an album but could do without the 8 or so songs that weren't smash hits in 18 countries? Greatest Hits albums, best of compilations. There's a couple different names for them, but they all mean the same thing. The biggest and best hits from a prolific band's career. Sometimes it's hard to try and get into an artist like Prince because you're smacked in the face with so much content and you're left there wondering, where do I even start? Some people say, oh, Purple Rain, or Sign of the Times, 1999, Love Sexy, Around the World in a Day, his debut, his self-titled, and some even say to watch the movie Purple Rain. And take it from someone who's actually seen that movie, don't. Well, I filled that quota for today. So the best course of action would be a best of or greatest hits compilation of some sort. You can sometimes find greatest hits equivalents for things like movies or video games, but those mediums don't really work for a greatest hits or best of format. They're big and meaty experiences that require a decent time commitment that keeps you thoroughly engaged throughout the running length. Meanwhile, I listen to 10 or so songs while thinking about what I want for lunch tomorrow. I'm thinking whiz fizz. You can usually squeeze a good 20 songs onto your average CD and about that much on a vinyl record if you hate sound. So you can make a really great selection of songs that feels hopefully cohesive and can almost tell its own story. I remember listening to Blink-182's greatest hits back in the day and getting introduced to them with the precocious cuts like Carousel and M&M's, and listening to them slowly evolve and mature with songs like Adam's Song, Man Overboard, and Down. And near the end we have a song that was left off the self-titled record, Not Now. It's my favorite Blink song of all time, and the impact it left being at the end of this compilation probably has a lot to do with that. The song is about dying and trying to say goodbye to the person you love before moving on into the afterlife. It's extremely poetic since this was the band's final single after their breakup in early 2005, and the greatest hits would be their final release until they got back together for the criminally underrated Neighborhoods in 2011. Not Now's music video only included clips from previous music videos, live shows, and random shenanigans on tour. Since they were broken up, they weren't going to film a new video for it, and the only new footage is a picture of the band being stripped off a chain link fence at the very end. This album really told their story in a great way following their rise and unfortunate demise. I listened to this thing many times during my teenage years on my way to and from high school, and it holds a very special place in my heart. Now, back to making everybody hate me again. I was weaned onto Prince's music by the very best of Prince some years ago, and had all the songs in order, which I'm a big fan of for any artist to do on albums like these. You get a great picture of the evolution of Prince, from his disco roots with I Wanna Be Your Lover, to his work with his backing band The Revolution, when he became unmistakably Prince as we know him today, and very much pop with songs like Little Red Corvette and Raspberry Beret. Then his more eclectic material when he began experimenting with New Jack Swing, and even rap with songs like Alphabet Street and Cream. And there's also a few songs from the new Power generation by the end. Much like with Blink-182's greatest hits, it feels like it tells a story with the choice of songs, the sequencing, and the fact they're all in order of release. It feels like a journey throughout his career. But it isn't perfect, as it omits some pretty noticeable songs in my opinion. The songs from the Batman soundtrack couldn't be included due to legal issues with Warner Brothers, and maybe that's for the best, honestly.
And where is the Batman?
And there's no excuse not to include songs like Controversy, I Could Never Take the Place of Your Man, My Name is Prince, I Could Go On, but you can only fit so much onto one disc. And with an artist such as Prince, it's impossible to include every important song he's done. The man simply has too many hits. But that takes me to the issue of prominent songs of a band's career just never being included on any best of compilations. I remember never biting the bullet on a Motorhead best of for a while because I couldn't find one that included Killed by Death or Hellraiser at any store. And I didn't know much about Motorhead at the time, but I knew I liked those songs. I for some reason never had the bright idea of trying to buy one online or even looking, so I was just trying to see what I could find in brick and mortar stores, and I eventually picked up this one, Deaf Forever, and it was pretty lackluster. Don't get me wrong, the songs are great, but I feel no love put into this collection. It just has Snaggletooth looking like Snaggletooth with a red background, and that's about it. Even the booklet is nothing to get excited about, it's just a journalist's personal anecdotes of seeing the band and meeting Lemmy. Maybe a Motorhead diehard would get a kick out of this, but there's no reason for a diehard fan to pick up a collection of songs they more than likely already own. I picked this up because I wanted to learn about the band, so why not include a write-up of the band's history? I mean, sure, I could find this information online, but including a short bio would go a long way in endearing a would-be fan into becoming a diehard. And unfortunately, the song selection is much better. Of course, there's the obvious choices like Overkill and Bomber, but for some bizarre reason, there's 8 songs from Iron Fist. Don't get me wrong, it's a good record, but out of 20 songs, why does this album take up nearly half of the track list? At the time of this album coming out, the band had just put out their 15th studio album, We Are Motorhead. So would it have killed whoever put this compilation together to maybe include a song or two that came out after 1986? The Wikipedia article says that this album includes more fan favorites, yet it doesn't include any songs from their debut, which is my personal favorite Motorhead record. And of course the tracklist order makes no sense at all, it doesn't flow that well, and it just goes all over the place in their history. And speaking of omitting tracks for no discernible reason, we have the very best of Testaments, and as you can see, the album cover features one of the figures from the album's Souls of Black cover very prominently. So it should be safe to say that that album would be represented. You would think so, wouldn't you? Yeah, Souls of Black is considered somewhat controversial in the Testament canon, as it was infamously rushed so they could be on the Clash of the Titans bill, and it was somewhat regressive compared to their previous album, Practice What You Preach. But I don't see the album's supposed controversiality being a justifiable reason to not include even one of the tracks on this thing. You can also find 4 songs from their follow-up, The Ritual, which was Testament trying to copy Metallica's The Black Album by abandoning thrash and trying to make a straight-up commercial metal record, and it led to guitar god Alex Skolnick leaving the band. So you can include 4 songs from a controversial sellout album, and no tracks from a record that was just simply rushed? And fine enough if you want to do that, but then why have this guy on the album cover? I wouldn't be surprised if this bamboozled someone into picking this up thinking that at least the song Souls of Black would be on there. And it should be, that song slaps. Then we have the best of Judas Priest. I have nightmares over the fact that I own this. This was originally released in 1978 when Judas Priest jump shipped from Gull Records to CBS, and in doing so the band gave up the rights to their first 2 records. So when Priest started getting some notoriety with songs like Hellbent for Leather, Exciter, and Distant Aggressor, Gull decided to cash in on the band they originally signed by making a best of compilation when they didn't even have the rights to the best of Judas Priest. Nah, kid. Sad Wings is great, and Rockarola sure exists, but when you only have those 2 albums to work with, you may as well not even try. Don't get me wrong, there's some classic tracks on this thing, but why would you buy this when you could not? It's the definition of a pointless release. Then there's the fact that it was reissued in 1989 on CD, which is what I own. That makes even less sense. In 1978, I can maybe see why you would pick this up, but after the release of records like Defenders of the Faith, Screaming for Vengeance, British Steel, and even Turbo, why would you buy this? I've just made a stark realization. Hell and Back, Alice Cooper's Greatest Hits. You see, I hope this went to hell at some point, because if not, I would have several questions. This is one of the worst album covers I have ever seen, which is a bad look for Alice because even his shitty albums usually have good album covers. And the track list is even worse. Cool, 8 songs per side of a record. I love when vinyl sounds like trash. Also, why is Only Women Bleed the opener? I love the song too, don't get me wrong, but that's the worst choice for an opener. Department of Youth, Muscle of Love, Isn't My Body, School's Out, Go to Hell would have been far better choices. And they're all on this album, it's not like they didn't have the rights to these songs. But something to consider is that this came from a time when best ofs were nothing more than a cheap, and I mean cheap, cash grab to lure in suckers like myself. I mean, look at this Creedence Clearwater Revival Greatest Hits. It doesn't even have artwork, so I'm keen to give it a pass and... oh, never mind. Depeche Mode's The Singles 81 to 85 is an odd little release as it catches them in an odd stage of their career. They're slowly but surely stripping away their doofy and lighthearted synth pop and are starting to get darker and incorporate more industrial elements into their sound. And it's funny how it starts with songs like Dreaming of Me that includes Ooh La La's and Just Can't Get Enough, which is maybe the most adolescent love song I've ever heard. To by the end getting songs dealing with suicide with blasphemous rumors, and BDSM/capitalism with Master and Servant. And I love all these songs for the record, I just think it's funny. Just goes to show how different this band is depending on who is writing the songs, whether it be Vince Clarke or Martin Gore. And to sweeten the deal, they even included 2 new songs. It's called A Heart and Shake the Disease. And while I like both, the latter is one of the best Depeche Mode songs of all time. It showcases Dave Gahan and Martin both singing, which I always love, and you can already see Alan Wilder's influence start to shine through in this band, with the atmosphere and lush soundscapes he can create. Damn, Alan, you deserved way better, my dude. but as much as I enjoyed its collection, there's other releases that came out later where you can get all these songs and more. Keep in mind this was released before many of the band's best and most defining records came out, so there's better compilations to pick up if you want a more definitive collection of Depeche Mode's classics. But there's none I've seen that have this much love seeped into it. And speaking of love or lack thereof, we have the Essentials series. There were a zillion of these things for just about any artist you can think of, and they all followed a specific structure. They were all 2 discs long, had a black and white picture of the band or artist, and had colored stock band logos, all with the same fonts. There were some outliers. Jefferson Airplane got a little bit of color, Fishbone and Kansas used band logos / album covers, and Iron Maiden got to use their logo for some inexplicable reason. Sometimes these compilations were kind of lacking in their presentation. The track listings sometimes sucked, and even if the selection was good, you can tell they were done on the cheap and no one really cared. And was there any good reason for the Maiden one to have all the songs in reverse order from when they came out? But a good example of one of these is the only one I ever owned for myself, and that was the Essential Cheap Trick. This is maybe my favorite Greatest Hits compilation of all time. And it's right to call itself Essential. There's no real glaring omissions here. It's got all their hits and a lot of underrated Cheap Trick gems like Downed, Southern Girls, The World's Greatest Lover, I Can't Take It, and Say Goodbye, which should have ended this compilation, I'm sorry. It's perfect to be the finale, and Scent of a Woman kinda blows, I'm sorry. The songs are all in order and tell the band's story magnificently. Sure, by the end you get a couple of stinkers, but considering there are 36 songs on this thing, clocking in at nearly 2.5 hours, I think it's a more than solid batting average. Though I do have some nitpicks. Like, I have no idea why Busted has 4 tracks on this thing. That album bombs and not many people like it, so that choice is kinda baffling. But I highly recommend this to someone wanting to get into Cheap Trick, or anybody who simply wants more power pop in their life. Now, I've merely been discussing Greatest Hits compilations I like here, and there's quite a few I couldn't include due to lack of time, so maybe I can revisit this topic in the future. But make no mistake, there's a stinky aura that surrounds these things. Many will scoff at these things as they're such, and I hate to say this, but nothing releases. There's very few best ofs I could call must-buys for fans of the band. I can only really recommend them if they have never before released songs or something along those lines. They're just seen as lesser, which makes sense because most of these are made purely to capitalize off the artist and make a quick buck. And in the age of streaming, not many are buying physical media anymore, unlike my dumbass. You see them less and less, like maybe at a truck stop where I've seen the best of Kiss rotting every day when I go to buy a slushie at 2 a.m. And nowadays when people buy physical records like vinyl, no one's gonna pick a Greatest Hits compilation. Vinyl records are one hell of a financial investment, and most people would rather buy a standard studio LP, including myself. I can't think of the last time I bought a Greatest Hits package. And with Spotify killing the physical media star, best of records are replaced by playlists and things of the like. You don't see many best ofs nowadays. The last one I remember releasing was one from Green Day. They're not really needed. If someone wants to be acquainted with an artist, it's easier today than ever. You don't have to spend $19.99 on a CD on a blind gamble that you might like it. It's as simple as putting in the band's name in Spotify and browsing through their most played songs. And there's no real pride to owning a Greatest Hits compilation. If you own a rare record like a promo copy or something, that's cool to nerds like me. But yeah, I also own Motley Crue's Red, White, and Crew. I'm not where I want to be in my life. But with all that being said, these compilations were gateways to new experiences that would often lead people to buying more records afterwards if they like what they heard. And these releases are time capsules and a part of history. Sometimes they're just fun to listen to as well. But I'm not cool while doing it, so fuck it. But that's just my opinion. Tell me what you guys think in the comments. You can click right here for more music related videos, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell in order to remain notified and to support the channel. But anyways, take it easy, party people.